Okay, so this is a lecture about APA, which has just recently updated. So the information here is with the 2019 update. So APA stands for the American Psychological Association. This is a format that you will find used in most of your sciences, your teacher ed classes, psychology obviously, and a whole variety of other classes. Business classes often use the APA format, and so it's a good format to know. It does look and cite differently than MLA. There are some definite similarities, but they are different. And probably the biggest thing has that APA has a title page. And instead of a works cited page, it uses the words reference, but it does the same thing. It gives you the full bibliographic information. APA uses headings to separate information, and that's for readability. It makes it a lot easier as a reader to be able to skim through and use the headers to figure out what information goes where. And so APA in that way is very research friendly. With citations, the capitalization rules differ a little bit. And so it's only with the citations, but not actually in the text of the paper. And lastly, numbers 10 and below are written out, and that is a difference from APA, or from MLA. Title page looks different than it used to in the new APA format. So if you'll notice here that the title is bold, and it's about a third of the way down, and then for students, it has minimal information. So student name, the name of the school, the course name, the teacher's name, and then when the paper is due. And you'll notice at the top right hand it has the page number. Now the second and subsequent pages, right, so if there is an abstract, then you have an abstract as your second page, but then after that is the body of your paper. All right, and so you'll notice here that in my example, it's page 3, and that's because in my example that I was creating, there was an abstract for page 2. But in this case, all right, here's your title again, and once again, it's bold. All right, and you'll notice that here are the different headers. So think about the headers sort of like, here's a major idea, and then as a first level header, and then the level 2 header is a sub idea but still fits within the first level. And then a third level header is part of level 2, but level 2 is still part of level 1. All right, and so it's just it's about the level amount of detail. Right, and a lot of your textbooks will have that same formatting. Maybe you'll notice that the big words, that's what this is all about, and then smaller, and the different colors. Same sort of idea here. Okay, so first level header is in the center and it's bold and the information goes below. The left-hand side for level 2 header, it's left justified, still bold, right, and the information's below. The level 3 header is indented and italicized, and then the information continues afterwards. Mostly in college, you're not going to get much beyond level 3 header, so I sort of left you here. A lot of times students don't know what to cite, and so a good rule of thumb is if it didn't come out of your own head, you need to cite it. It is way better to oversight than it is to undercite. Any information, if it's paraphrased or quoted, if you put it in your own words, you directly take it out of the text, you need to cite it. All right, and you need to cite it 2 times. You need to cite it in the text, and you need to cite it at the end in the references page. So there are some best practices for how to do this, and generally it's just a good idea. The first time you use a source, you want to give the source information. All right, so you want to tell the reader who the author is, what the title of the piece is, sort of what's the main idea of the piece. All right, and that's called a signal phrase. All right, and so I've given you 2 examples here. All right, you'll notice in this one, according to Paul Campos, so here's his author, here's your year, and the book Diet Myth, right? So it's the title of the book, right? Blah, 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 and then here's the page number. All right, and I gave you another example. This is an article, all right? And so here's the title of the article, all right? Here's the author, year that it was published, and explains blah, 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 and again, page number. All right, you want to introduce your research so that your reader knows that you are very smart because you found somebody who who's an authority, who's got a PhD or who really knows what they're talking about. And if you found a good source, then that reflects well on you. All right, in-text citations. All right, so in APA, in-text citations, you got to have the author and you have to have the date for sure, because APA is very interested in currency of the information. All right, if you're writing something about psychology that is based in the 1950s, you are going to be laughed out of the room. What they know about the brain and about psychology in the last 70 years has increased a lot. And so you want to make sure that the information you bring is current. Right? You don't want to use old information in APA. Right? So with paraphrased information, you have author, and then the date right after explains blah, blah, blah. If it's a direct quote, and this is a slight change from the previous APA, if it's directly quoted, then you also need to include the page number. All right, and so there's a variety of ways you can do that. All right, so here's our signal phrase, according to Tim Cravens, here's our year, here's the direct quote, all right, page 36. Or, and we have Cravens explains in his book, blah, 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 in most situations, blah, 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 here's your year, comma, page number. All right, if there isn't a signal phrase, and you might not use the signal phrase, especially if you've used a source 3 or 4 times, you no longer need to introduce it over and over and over. So then you can just put in Cravens, comma, 2011, comma, p.36. Okay. Now, websites do not have page numbers, so don't make them up. Just don't. All right. As a good rule for in-text citations, and this is just a good rule for really all research, you want to paraphrase most of your work. All right, if you have a long quote, paraphrase it, put it in your own words. If you have short quotes, paraphrase it and put it in your own words. All right, you want your paper to sound like you wrote it, not like a teenage boy is, reading your work and the voice is cracking up and down. All right, everybody's got a little bit of a different voice in their writing, and if you just sort of shove together a bunch of quotes, it sounds like a lot of different people in your paper. You want your paper to sound like you, and so in order to do that, really a good idea is just to paraphrase almost everything and only use quotes when you need the expert voice to be heard. All right, and yes, if you don't do this, this is indeed how we end up Googling things. I have a hilarious story about it. Hit me up if you want to know. All right, so giving you some example of quoted versus paraphrase on the left, this is the actual quote, all right? And has all this information, blah, blah, blah. It's a direct quote. You'll notice here, direct quote, got the quotation marks. Wait, this is the article title. Here's the quotation marks, right, at the beginning to identify to the reader that this information comes from somewhere else. That's what the quotation marks do. All right, and here's the end quotation marks. All right, so here, I sort of said all the same thing in a lot less detail over here. All right, article title. We know it's an article title because, again, it's a shorter part of something bigger. That's what the quotes identify. All right, and then same information, less detail. All right, some last thoughts about plagiarism. If you take it word for word, put your quotations around it, all right, and cite it. If you paraphrase your information, still cite the work. You have to do that. All right. If you don't do these things, it is considered plagiarism, and everybody's syllabus has something about academic dishonesty, and you do not, repeat, do not, for the people in the back, do not want to get called out on plagiarism. All right. It's just bad. All right, academic dishonesty is like the highest form of capital punishment crime in academia. Just don't do it. All right, on to the bibliographic citation. All right, so these are formatted with hanging indent. They are in alphabetical order by last name, and everything you ever cited in the paper needs to be included at the end. Now, occasionally you will get a teacher who will tell you they want a bibliography, and that is a good day for you as a student. All right, because a bibliography is not the same thing as a references page. A references page is only what actually made it into your paper. A bibliography is everything that you ever read ever at all about this topic. You can pad the hell out of it. All right. So most teachers are pretty careful about has to be references page. It's just the stuff that made it into your paper. All right, so here's your example, Cravens, comma T. All right, you'll notice that in APA format, they do not care about your first name. They just don't. All right, it's last name, comma first. All right, for initial, then the date, the name of the book, name of the publishers, which obviously is made up. All right, and that's how you do that. All right, your entire Rules for Writers book has an entire section for like pretty much every kind of possible source you're going to run into. If you run into something that is not in Rules for Writers, you can try the Purdue OWL. All right, if that doesn't work, then we can go get you the actual APA format book. Right, and show you, and figure it out from there. But you're pretty much covered, right? You're not going to pretty much find something so arcane that we're not going to figure out how to do the citations. All right, so there's lots of different examples. There's some crossover, right? Every one of these is author's last name, comma, first initial, and then the year published. Year published is always second. All right, title of the book in small letters, publisher. Here, it's an article newspaper, so the article title's in small letters, then the title of the newspaper, then the page numbers. All right, here for the magazine or journal, right, it's pretty much the same as the newspaper, except maybe you'll have a volume and issue number. And then the DOI, this is the Digital Object Identifier. This is like a social security number for your article, right? And increasingly we see these. And if you click on the DOI, you can find the article immediately on the interwebs. So yeah, this is a good thing to know. All right, and then for the article from a website, again, here's your author, date, title of your article, title of the site, where you found it, and then the URL. If you've seen previous incarnations of this, it said retrieved from. APA no longer requires that. They just want the live link, and they do want the live URL. All right, so here's the example. Here's our author, here's our year, here's the title of the article, here's the title of the source, and then here's the actual link. Okay. APA, a little bit more depth with websites. A lot of times students run into trouble with websites, which is why, of course, all the teachers are encouraging you to read books. But one of the reasons the students want to find websites is it's easy, and one of the reasons teachers don't want you to is because sometimes the information is incomplete, and that makes it harder for you to cite. All right, so if you can't find your information, go back to the home page to see if that information is available. If you don't find the information at all, but after doing your due diligence, then if you don't have a publisher, skip it. If you don't have a date, use n.d. to show no date. If you don't have a page number, skip it. If you don't have the author, skip it and start with the title. Now, some of your teachers may ask you to write an annotated bibliography, and this is just a meta step in your research. It's just designed to help you sort of keep it in order, and also to make sure you're reading it as you're going along. So it's a summary of your information and your notes about each source, right? And it gives you the chance to create your citation as you go along. All right, and this is what that would look like. So author, title, year. All right, this is a quick little blurb about the annotated bibliography. Right, it's a quick summary of it, and then here is it useful or not useful, and that's generally a good thing. There's sort of notes for yourself. All right, and then lastly, here's a student practice. All right, so that if you're not 100% sure, you have all the information here that you would need to be able to create an in-text citation and a bibliographic citation. Thanks. Let me know if you have any questions.